In the autumn of 1888, a shadow fell over the gaslit streets of London's East End. A palpable fear gripped the district of Whitechapel, a place already burdened by poverty and crime. This wasn't just ordinary fear. It was a cold, creeping terror brought on by a series of gruesome murders that would become one of history's greatest unsolved mysteries. The perpetrator would earn a name that still sends a shiver down the spine: Jack the Ripper. Our story begins in the early morning hours of August 31st, 1888. A carter named Charles Cross was walking to work down a dark lane called Buck's Row. He noticed a shape on the ground, which he initially thought was just a tarpaulin sheet. But as he got closer, the grim reality became clear. It was the body of a woman. Her name was Mary Ann Nichols, and she was the first of what would become known as the canonical 5 victims of Jack the Ripper. The brutality of the crime was shocking, but it was only the beginning. Just over a week later, on September 8th, the body of Annie Chapman was discovered in the backyard of 29 Hanbury Street. The injuries inflicted upon her were even more horrific than those on Mary Ann Nichols. Panic started to spread like wildfire. The newspapers, hungry for a sensational story, began printing every lurid detail, fanning the flames of public terror. The name Jack the Ripper hadn't appeared yet, but London knew it had a monster in its midst. The police were under immense pressure. They launched one of the largest manhunts in the city's history, interviewing thousands of people and following up on every lead, no matter how flimsy. But the killer was like a ghost. He struck in the dead of night, in the labyrinthine alleys of Whitechapel, and vanished without a trace. The area was a perfect hunting ground, overcrowded, poorly lit, and filled with a transient population. The killer moved through it like a phantom. Then, on September 27th, the Central News Agency received a letter. It was written in red ink and taunted the police for their inability to catch him. The author bragged about his crimes and promised to continue his work. It was in this letter that the infamous name first appeared. It was signed, "Yours truly, Jack the Ripper." Whether this letter was genuinely from the killer or a cruel hoax is still debated today, but the name stuck. It gave the faceless terror a moniker, and the media ran with it. Just 3 days later, the Ripper escalated his reign of terror in what became known as the double event. In the early morning of September 30th, the bodies of 2 women, Elizabeth Stride and Catherine Eddowes, were found within an hour of each other. Stride was found in Duffield's yard with her throat cut, but unlike the previous victims, she had no other mutilations. Police speculated that the killer might have been interrupted. If so, his bloodlust was not satisfied. Less than an hour later, and only a short walk away, the horribly mutilated body of Catherine Eddowes was discovered in Mitre Square. This time the killer had taken his time. The savagery was unprecedented. He had not only killed her, but had also removed some of her internal organs with a chilling degree of precision. The discovery of Eddowes' body added another layer to the mystery. A piece of her blood-stained apron was found in a nearby doorway on Goulston Street. Above it, scrawled in chalk on the wall, were the words, "The Jews are the men that will not be blamed for nothing." Was this a clue left by the killer? Or just anti-Semitic graffiti that happened to be there? The Metropolitan Police Commissioner, Sir Charles Warren, ordered the writing to be washed away before dawn, fearing it could incite riots. This decision has been criticized for centuries as the potential destruction of a key piece of evidence. The public's fear turned into outright hysteria. Vigilante groups, like the Whitechapel Vigilance Committee, led by a local builder named George Lusk, formed to patrol the streets. Lusk himself would become part of the story when he received a small box in the mail. Inside was half of a human kidney, preserved in wine, along with a note. The letter, known as the From Hell letter, began with the chilling words, "From Hell. Mr. Lusk, sir, I send you half the kidney I took from one woman, preserved it for you, t'other piece I fried, and ate it was very nice." Forensic analysis at the time suggested it could have come from Catherine Eddowes, who had her left kidney removed. After the double event, there was a lull. For over a month, London held its breath, hoping the nightmare was over. But on November 9th, Jack the Ripper committed his final and most gruesome murder. The victim was Mary Jane Kelly, a young woman who, unlike the others, was killed indoors, in her small room at 13 Miller's Court. The scene that greeted the landlord, when he came to collect the rent, was something out of a horror story. The mutilation was so extreme that she was barely recognizable. The killer had had hours to do his work, undisturbed and secure behind a locked door. And then, silence. After the murder of Mary Jane Kelly, the killing suddenly stopped. Jack the Ripper disappeared as mysteriously as he had arrived. The question that has haunted historians, criminologists, and amateur sleuths for over 130 years is, who was he? The list of suspects is long and varied, and it reads like a cast of characters from a Victorian novel. There was Montague John Druitt, a barrister and schoolteacher whose body was found in the River Thames shortly after the last murder. Some believe he was the killer and took his own life out of guilt. Then there was Aaron Kosminski, a Polish immigrant who worked as a hairdresser in Whitechapel. He suffered from severe mental illness and had a known hatred of women. He was committed to an asylum and matched the geographical and psychological profile some investigators had constructed. Another prominent suspect was Surin Kalasowski, who went by the alias George Chapman. He was a poisoner, convicted of killing 3 of his wives. One of the lead investigators at the time, Inspector Frederick Aberline, reportedly favored him as the Ripper after his conviction. And the theories get even more elaborate. Some have pointed the finger at respected doctors, arguing that only someone with medical knowledge could have performed the mutilations with such skill. Others have even suggested a member of the royal family, Prince Albert Victor, or the famous painter Walter Sickert. Each suspect has compelling arguments for and against them. Druitt's suicide is convenient, but there's no direct evidence linking him to the crimes. Kosminski fits the profile, but his mental and physical state might have made it impossible for him to carry out the attacks. Chapman was a known killer, but his method was poison, a far cry from the Ripper's brutal knife work. The lack of forensic technology at the time is the biggest hurdle. Police had to rely on eyewitness accounts, which were often contradictory and unreliable in the dimly lit, chaotic streets of Whitechapel. They had no DNA, no fingerprinting, nothing to definitively link a suspect to the crime scenes. All they had were clues that led down countless dead ends. Despite the passing of more than a century, the case of Jack the Ripper continues to fascinate us. It's more than just a true crime story. It's a window into the dark side of Victorian London. It exposed the brutal reality of life for the city's poorest residents and highlighted the social issues of the time. The murder sparked discussions about poverty, housing, and the treatment of women. The identity of Jack the Ripper may forever remain a mystery, a puzzle with missing pieces. He was a terrifying specter who brought a great city to its knees and then vanished into the fog of history. His 5 victims, Mary Ann Nichols, Annie Chapman, Elizabeth Stride, Catherine Eddowes, and Mary Jane Kelly, were more than just names in a famous case. They were women with lives, families, and stories of their own, whose tragic fates became entwined with London's most enduring legend. Their story, and the story of the killer who hunted them, serves as a chilling reminder of the darkness that can lurk just beneath the surface of society. Thank you so much for watching. If you found this dive into history as fascinating as I did, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe for more deep dives into history's greatest mysteries. Let me know in the comments who you think Jack the Ripper was. See you next time.